The sun was setting behind the great baobab tree, its golden rays stretching across the sky like the final whispers of a dying fire. The village, a small and ancient place, was bathed in a warm, orange glow. Smoke curled from the thatched roofs of the mud huts as the villagers finished their evening tasks. Children laughed in the distance, their voices blending with the rustling of leaves and the occasional hoot of an owl. I had arrived that morning, a traveler in search of stories. The villagers welcomed me with cautious smiles, their dark eyes filled with quiet wisdom. They were kind but reserved, speaking in hushed tones as if afraid to wake something sleeping beneath the roots of the land. And then I saw her. She stood near the great baobab tree, her figure illuminated by the fading sunlight. She wore a golden tribal dress that shimmered like liquid fire. Her long braided hair cascaded over her shoulders, moving slightly in the evening breeze. But it was her eyes that held me still, deep, dark, and ancient, like they had seen more than any human should. For a moment, she looked at me. A small, knowing smile played on her lips, and then she turned away, disappearing into the shadows of the tree. A chill ran down my spine. Something about her was not right. Something about her was not human. I turned to a nearby villager and asked, "Who is she?" The man stiffened. He did not answer. He simply bowed his head and walked away. The laughter of children had stopped. The village had grown eerily silent. And then I heard the whisper, "She only comes for those who seek her." That night, I could not sleep. The image of the woman haunted my mind. I had traveled to many places, met many people, but never had I seen someone who made the air feel different. I left my hut and walked toward the baobab tree, my feet crunching softly against the dry earth. The village was asleep, but the tree stood awake, watching over the land with its gnarled, ancient limbs. And she was there. She stood beneath the tree, her golden dress now dark under the moonlight. The wind played with the loose strands of her hair, carrying the scent of something unfamiliar, something old and forgotten. I hesitated, but something inside me pushed me forward. I stepped closer, my heart pounding in my chest. "Who are you?" I asked. She turned to me, her deep brown eyes filled with sadness. "A traveler always asks that question," she said softly. "And I always give the same answer." I waited. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I am what you see," she said. "And what you refuse to see." Her voice was like the wind through hollow bones. I shivered. She stepped toward me, her bare feet making no sound against the ground. "Why have you come here?" "I'm a storyteller," I admitted. "I collect tales." She nodded as if she already knew. "Then you must be careful what you seek," she whispered. "Because some stories do not want to be told." And then, as if the night itself swallowed her, she was gone. The next morning, I sought out the village elder. He was an old man with a face carved by time, his eyes sharp with the weight of many years. He sat outside his hut, smoking a long wooden pipe, watching me with quiet curiosity. "You met her," he said. It was not a question. I nodded. He sighed and exhaled a cloud of smoke. "Every traveler meets her," he said. "And every traveler leaves with a warning." I leaned in. "Tell me." The old man glanced at the baobab tree, his expression unreadable. "Long ago, she was one of us. A woman, just like any other. But she loved the wrong man, and the spirits cursed her." I felt the air grow colder. What was the curse? The elder took another long drag from his pipe. "She can never leave the tree. She exists only in the eyes of those who look for her." A shiver ran down my spine. "That doesn't make sense." The old man finally looked at me. "Then tell me," he said, "what happens when you take a picture of something that should not exist?" I frowned. "Nothing. It's just a photo." The elder's lips curled into a sad smile. "Is it?" I had to know the truth. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I walked to the baobab tree once more. My camera hung around my neck, its lens cold against my skin. And she was waiting for me. She stood beneath the tree, her expression unreadable. "You do not listen," she said softly. I swallowed. I just want to remember. Her eyes darkened. Some things are not meant to be remembered. Ignoring the growing unease in my chest, I raised my camera and clicked. A flash of light. A heartbeat of silence. Then she was gone. I exhaled and looked at the camera screen. The image showed the woman standing beneath the tree, but something was wrong. Her eyes. They were no longer looking at the camera. They were looking at me. A whisper drifted through the air. A soft, knowing voice. You should not have done that. My hands began to shake. And then the camera screen went black. I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the village, gasping for breath. I stumbled into the elder's hut, my camera clutched in my hands. I took her picture. I panted. The elder looked at me with pity. And what did you see? I turned the camera screen toward him. Nothing. The image was gone. The elder sighed. She is part of the tree. And the tree is part of the land. You cannot take what does not belong to you. I felt my body grow cold. What does that mean? The elder only shook his head. You will understand soon. That night I dreamt of the baobab tree. And in the dream, she was still watching me, smiling, waiting.